Hello again, everybody. We recently, so this is going to be the second video for kind of the second lecture. I'm doing these pretty rapid as we're a little more compressed than normally I would do a final project. Normally we'd have a good month to do a final project. I guess we're going to be pretty close to that. But anyway, what I normally do in class for both intro and graphics is at the first 10 to 30 minutes or so of class, I'll come in, we'll talk about a few topics, I'll lead you through the design process and talk about the importance and the relevance and try to give you some information about where you as a group should be in the design process at this point. Now, in the previous video, we introduced this concept of the design process. And we said that first and foremost, define the problem. Don't try to solve a problem if you don't know what the problem is. There are plenty of people in this world that do that, and it doesn't really help anybody. As engineers, again, we are problem solvers. We try to apply the existing knowledge to find the most practical and best solution to a problem. That's our goal. Now, how can I do that? Well, I can train you to, or how can we do that? How can I teach you how to do that? I can try to train you how to solve any problem. And that's what the design process is, a very good generic problem-solving process we can use to do just that. And that's the reason whenever I do some kind of final project, I'll take a few minutes at the beginning of class and talk to you about the design process. So last time I told you, as a group, come up with your problem definition, because if nothing else, if no other motivation, this is going to be the first section of one of the first sections of your report. And the introduction section is, what did you as a group decide you're going to set out to try to do? Think about what timetable you're looking at. What do you want to get done this week? What do you want to get done next week? What do you need to accomplish by your next mandatory group meeting? Okay. The next couple of phases are where we're generating ideas. There's this idea of research, right? Old knowledge. What's known about this problem? What solutions already exist? Are there solutions in other fields that already exist? Again, engineering is the application of existing scientific and mathematical knowledge to solve practical problems. You can't do engineering if you don't have the prior knowledge. And that's what this phase is go out and get what prior knowledge exists and see if that inspires you when we get into the next phase. And that's what we'll talk about today, is the idea of synthesis and brainstorm. Now, during all of this phase, we need to document what we're doing, and that's where the personal progress reports or a design notebook come in. And we're also going to talk about that today. And then a little bit later, we can talk about concept evaluation. Right? And then that's working our way towards some kind of a final design. Okay? Now, we've got some notes here. These are the notes I would normally do in class. Because this didn't start out as an online class, I'm trying to replicate the classroom experience as much as I can for you. That's the purpose of these videos. So, research. Again, I don't want to spend too much time here. We don't have to do a real in-depth literature review. We don't have to go, I'm not requiring, if this was a junior or senior level design course, I would ask you to go out and analyze what patents exist. A, we've got to make sure we don't infringe on any patents, but B, also that's a really good way to generate ideas, is see what ideas already exist out there. This is not a junior, senior level design class, so I'm not going to ask you to do that, but it wouldn't be a terrible idea if you wanted to go to the U.S. Patent Office and see what ideas exist out there. I'm not too picky about where you get your old ideas, but you do want to document whatever knowledge you're gathering right now. You should be gathering knowledge about the project that you've been assigned. What is the science behind it? What are the regulations? What can we do? What can we not do? And what's being done in this area? Okay. So see what solutions are out there. Maybe something already exists exactly as we need it, or parts of it similar that we can use. Now, normally I would ask students to keep a design notebook. I'm not asking you to go out and brave the world and go purchase a design notebook. If you've got one laying around, or if you happen to be out already and want to pick one up, that's fine. Some kind of a bound notebook. Here's one that you can see. And it's something that's a bound structure that's got plenty of blank pages that you can write things. This is a notebook I keep here. This is what's called a moleskin, right? Not necessarily endorsing it, but these guys, this is a top quality notebook. And this is where I keep different information, different things that I need. This is my personal notebook, and various projects, personal and professional, are kept in there. If you want to keep a design notebook, right? So we've talked about PPRs. And so I've assigned to you to keep or to submit personal progress report. Right, so I'm asking you on a weekly basis, and I'm going to set up some assignment folders for this, so you can just submit files. So this is part of your final project assignment. Is these can be kept, I think I've mentioned this, in a design notebook. That would be my recommendation. Is go get yourself a notebook, or if you've got a notebook sitting around, a single subject spiral notebook will be okay for what we're doing here. Again, I'm not asking you to go out and go purchase one, given the current crisis, but if you happen to be out for other reasons, don't make a special trip for this, but if you happen to be out for other reasons and find a nice bound notebook that you can keep notes in for this project, please pick one up. That's the easiest way to do this. And then just simply load pictures to the assignment folder. Again, I don't have these set up yet. I've got to figure out how I want to do that within Canvas. That's on me. I'll get that done. But that's kind of the easiest way to do this. Now you can simply type weekly reports. If that is your preference. If you don't have a notebook laying around, you're not going to be out in the world to go where you can go get one. That's okay. You can do either one. I'm going to talk to you if you want to keep a design notebook. That'll be my recommendation. I want to talk to you about how to do that. So each student's going to do their own personal progress reports on a weekly basis. That's going to be part of your final grade. When we do design notebooks, normally what I do is I come around every class period, or at least on a weekly basis, and say, okay, well, show me your notebooks, and I'm looking for dated entries, right? So put a date at the top of every entry that you make, and I'm just looking to make sure that you're keeping up with your notebook throughout the project. So here you're going to be submitting those to me in an online format, either as a JPEG, a PDF, or if you're writing it as a document, .docx or a TXT will be fine. But that's an individual grade. This is not a group grade. Each individual student's going to do this. The idea here is, in the advantage of a notebook as opposed to typing this up, is you can have your own drawings. You saw mine where I keep some drawings of some some different things that I've built or designed. They don't have to be pretty. It is intended for your own personal use. You know, don't think of it as a journal. I mean, you can. I'm not going to share with anybody else what you turn in on your PPRs. Right? So whatever you want to put in there is your business. But just kind of keep in mind that anybody associated with the project, one of the biggest goals of this is to document what you're doing and where if a patentable idea originates from a project, you want to know when did that idea originate, and we want to have that documented. Now, I don't expect any patentable ideas are going to come out of this, but you never know. If anytime you do have a patentable idea, one of the first things you want to do is put it in a permanently bound notebook structure, date the entries, and then you actually, it's not going to win a court case, but at least it's a piece of evidence that you can use. Okay? So, all that to say is, I wouldn't put like your feelings or, you know, dear diary, my group members are terrible. I mean, I wouldn't put that kind of stuff in there, because if you ever do find yourself in a position where you're trying to protect an idea and say, well, no, we had this idea first and here's the proof, just kind of keep that in mind. Is don't put anything in there that you wouldn't want somebody else associated with the project to have access to. Okay. Again, I'm going to protect confidentiality. I'm not going to tell anybody, but there is that. Okay. So again, if you're keeping a design notebook, and that's what I would suggest, and if you've come from a pre-engineering academy where they have a very rigorous design notebook structure, feel free to implement that. I'm not going to force a rigorous structure on you. At the very least, you want to put dates on your entries. That's the only thing I'm going to require is put dates on your entries. And that's true whether you're just typing it up or whether you're actually keeping it in a notebook. Do put individual dates on what was accomplished on which day. Okay. Planning carried out. So whenever you have your mandatory group meetings, what did everybody say they were going to do? Even if it doesn't get done, it's at least a documentation. So the next time you have a mandatory group meeting, you can go back to your notebooks, you can go back to your PPRs and say, okay, well, these were the things that we said we were going to do. Where do we stand? Where do we need to pick up from there? Right? That way you don't waste a lot of time exchange pleasantries by all means, but that way you're ready to go and pick up. You can refer to your notebooks, refer to your PPRs. Here's where we were, where are we now? Okay. Any measurements you do, any calculations you do, put at least notes. If you don't carry them out in your notebook, put at least notes of them. When you're doing research, put in there what's honestly just as valuable as or keyword searches that don't work. Right? If you may find yourself having to do several hundreds of keyword searches in a search engine of some kind. You will forget which searches you've done and which searches you haven't. Okay? If you find a good source that you want to include and that will end up showing up in your notebook or in your report, you don't have to put a bibliography reference, the complete bibliography reference in your notebook, but you do want to put enough information that you can build that bibliography, that works cited information in your report later. So at least a title, which company owns the website. You wouldn't have to copy down the URL, but at least enough information that you can get there when you need to. Okay. If you're in a notebook, if you're on paper, sign your entries, right? So, especially if you've got something you want to try to protect, make sure you've got a signature and a date. Don't leave a lot of white space in your notebook. If you're trying to protect an idea, you can't leave a lot of white space. And if you really need to try to protect an idea, have somebody witness it. That's my 15-minute alarm. If you really need to protect an idea, have somebody else sign it and date it. Somebody that you can trust is not going to steal your idea. All right, we're going to pick up there on the next video.